started?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, pec major, take 2, because I forgot to press record first time. Which is too bad because the baby puked. My wife was holding him. It was a whole thing. It was going to be funny for you guys, but there we are. Anyways, triggers in the pec major. The clavicular division tend to refer most strongly over the anterior shoulder. The more middle sternal division over the chest, the shoulder, and sometimes spreading in through the arm. And this free border that you can grab will refer right over the breast. Palpating for trigger points, again, like pec minor, is going to be dependent how much you can access on the body composition of your patient. So we can either do a cross fiber palpation, and you can either, you should get your consent for palpating in this area, or get your patient to make a barrier with their hand. Or you can come in under the axilla, making sure you're actually getting underneath the border of that pec minor, and do a cross fiber palpation, rolling the pecs through your fingers. It can be a very effective way of palpating. Okay, at this point I think you guys get the trigger point protocol, so either find that tender point or that top banded nodule and hold, or find it through this pincer way and pinch and hold, following our protocol. To reset, if you could slide towards the edge of the table for me, please, and get this shoulder right off there. Perfect. To reset, depending on the fibers, you're either going to come up like this and bring them into that extension. 1, 2, 3. More horizontal. 1, 2, 3. Or more inferior. 1, 2, 3. And then getting your patient to do, slide back to the middle for me. Do whichever one of those you did actively. To stretch, actually, sorry, I lied. Slide back here. To stretch, again, is going to depend on the fibers that you stretched. So either stabilizing the costal region, extending down off the table, so your arm is abduction, changing the position of your hand a little bit to stabilize those sternal fibers a little more. Bring the arm up here. Most people will start to feel a stretch right around here. If they're not, sometimes you need to drop them off the table a little bit into more extension. But this is like scalenes. Don't drop them way down here and then stabilize, because that'll be way too much, way too quick for some people. So stabilize firmly first. Slowly bring down. You're activating force. If I'm holding their hand like this, I'm going to say gently press your arm up into my thumb for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. And then take to the next barrier. Or coming down more into this range. Typically I'm in this range, or this range, or somewhere in between. And slide back to the middle for me, please. Because of the broad insertion of pec major, we don't use, we don't friction the origin. I mean, you could try frictioning off of the clavicle and then off of the sternal attachments, but it's not required. But the intertubercular groove should be very palpable. You might need to externally rotate the arm a little bit to get him through there. So if I'm doing my longitudinal frictions, I'm going to go in this kind of oblique direction here, longitudinally, and cross fiber. Like we've talked about with other muscles, the majority of the Golgi tendon organs are located at the musculotendinous junction rather than the actual insertion. So you can, and it's not very comfortable to friction right in that intertubercular groove. So you can choose to palpate up that pec tendon until you feel it become more muscular, which isn't as long as some of the other muscles we've talked about that with, but just slipping off of that insertion a little bit. You're performing your longitudinal frictions. Again, mostly in this oblique area, although if you're focusing just on the clavicular attachment, it would be more a lateral to medial to avoid compressing into these bony prominences, and then inferior to superior in this direction for the cross fiber frictions. To approximate pec major, again, is going to depend on the fibers that you're focused on, but a safe bet is to just palpate that tender area, bring their arm into this horizontal adduction. If they're having a hard time relaxing their arm, doing a gentle traction usually helps them do that. And then experimenting with varying degrees of horizontal flexion here to find where their position of most relief is. Holding for 90 seconds once you found that position of most relief.